Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Another grim record, the highest number of daily COVID-19 cases ever seen in BC. Also,
so a lot of things went into consideration, primarily the safety of our audiences and our artists.
Virtual Diwali, how the South Asian community is celebrating differently this weekend. And
there were huge differences.
How does your mask measure up? Marketplace puts more than 24 consumer masks to the test.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Another day, another new grim record for our province in the fight against COVID-19. More than 600 new cases today, the highest daily number we have seen to date in BC. Of the 617 new cases, 69% are in the Fraser Health region. There are now 167 people in hospital and 50 patients in intensive care. That's a slight increase from yesterday. Sadly, there are 2 more deaths today, bringing the total to 290. One number that went down, the number of active cases, which sits at just over 5,500. There are also 3 new healthcare facility outbreaks. In total, 35 long-term care or assisted living facilities and 6 acute care facilities have active outbreaks. And the province is announcing updates to enforcement measures to try to help curb the spread of COVID-19, targeting party buses and limousines and their passengers. BC Solicitor General Mike Farnworth is giving police and other provincial enforcement officers the power to issue tickets to party bus and limousine operators caught breaking Dr. Bonnie Henry's order for the Vancouver Coastal and Fraser Health regions. Operators who violate the rules will be subject to a $2,000 fine. Passengers caught gathering on a party bus or limousine in these regions could face individual fines of $200. The province says all ticketing measures previously announced this summer are also still in place. And with COVID-19 cases surging, health officials say contact tracers are being stretched to the max. Schools are among the many places where health workers are scrambling to keep up. As John Hernandez reports tonight, advocates say there are major delays before students and staff are warned of an exposure.
2 months into classes and the numbers just keep climbing. There's been more than 260 exposures inside BC schools, and in most cases, it starts with a rumor.
So quite frequently, teachers might hear from students or parents or colleagues that there's been a positive test, but officially there's no word. And sometimes it's well after the fact.
Rumors that more often than not turn out to be true, but seem to be taking longer and longer to confirm.
There's a big time lag between when someone has a positive case and when there's an official notification of a school exposure.
A lag that's largely attributed to BC's surging COVID-19 case count.
I will say that with our rapid increase in numbers of people affected by COVID-19 in the last few weeks, this has been put at jeopardy. Our ability in public health to find everybody in a timely way, particularly in the Fraser Health and Vancouver coastal regions.
For some teachers in Surrey, the largest district in the province, it's taken upwards of a week to be notified of an exposure.
We had one teacher who received a notice, okay, you should be self-monitoring for symptoms within this 14-day period, and they got it on the very last day of the period.
For parents, a similar struggle.
Can it be faster? Can it be better? 100%.
Atish Chand has kids enrolled at LA Matheson, where there's already been 4 exposures.
And every single time it occurs, parents often reach out to me and go, Atish, why are we still sending our kids?
Health officials say more contact tracers are on the way and that the risk of transmission remains low.
There have been less than a dozen incidences where there's been transmission within the school setting.
While officials hope to curb the reporting lag, anxieties are piling up, fueling ongoing calls for greater transparency.
The thing that's making us all more anxious is we don't know enough.
Transparency that could put many minds at ease. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
No large gatherings, no parade. COVID-19 and those new health orders are forcing Metro Vancouver's South Asian community to celebrate Diwali much differently. As Briar Stewart reports, this year's festival will embrace the virtual.
It's Bollywood fusion dance in the age of COVID-19. Like so much of daily life, this expression of the South Asian festival of Diwali has had to move online.
With the recent uptick in cases and the greater restrictions, I think it's definitely, they've felt a lull in the mood. And
Kriti Devon says normally the Vancouver festival draws as many as 10,000 people. Happy Diwali! To celebrate through dance, art and food. But with cases at record highs in the Lower Mainland and restrictions banning social gatherings, all the performances this year are virtual.
People are disappointed that they cannot come together with their families, but at the same time, a lot of people are encouraging each other to stay at home, having Zoom parties.
Diwali and Bandi Chor Divas, which is the Sikh holiday celebrated at the same time, normally draw large crowds to temples. At this Gurdwara in Edmonton, they're still expecting around 2,000 people to come.
We have to wear the mask, we have to keep the distance 6 feet from each other, and we have to be coming by, one by one. We can't have in the prayer hall more than 15 people.
Part of the push is to get the message out in different languages.
I think people are trying to adapt to everything.
Sukhmeet Sachul is a medical student and has started a volunteer group to spread public health advice in the South Asian community. Signs are posted in Punjabi, and turban fabric is used to demonstrate how far 6 feet apart actually is. Now he and his team are spreading the message about Diwali.
It's a festival of light, basically, and so we're trying to focus more so on, you don't want to spread darkness, aka COVID. You want to spread lightness, so light, and so you need to work with people around you, spend time with your family.
Connect virtually for now and save the in-person celebrations for next year. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, for children across Canada and here in BC, this next piece of news might be as welcome as a lump of coal. 19 malls owned by Cadillac Fairview are canceling visits with Santa Claus this year because of the pandemic. 2 of those are in BC, Pacific Centre in downtown Vancouver and Richmond Centre. Instead, the company says it'll be offering Santa Storytime sessions on Facebook, and families can book one-on-one sessions, video chats. It's not clear if other Metro Vancouver malls plan to follow suit. Well, a frustrating situation with no end in sight for residents of an apartment building in Mission gutted by fire last month. Since they escaped with only the essentials, tenants haven't been able to retrieve their belongings. And as they explained to our Andrea Ross, they haven't been able to get any straight answers either.
Where have I been staying? With my daughter-in-law. If it wasn't for her, I'd be homeless.
Cyril Hawkins feels like he's been forgotten. Last month, a huge fire broke out at his apartment in Mission, forcing residents to flee in the middle of the night.
Basically, all I've got is a few clothes that I've got on my back and a few others at home and my medications.
Parts of the building are badly damaged, and Hawkins says its 82 tenants have been left in the dark. Residents aren't allowed past this fence. They have no idea when they'll be allowed to gather their belongings or move back in, and they say all their questions are going unanswered. Hawkins' daughter-in-law has been trying for weeks to contact the building's management company.
I want them to give these people a definitive answer as to when they will get their stuff, if they can get it, if it's even salvageable, and also give them some support to get the stuff out.
The building changed management shortly after the fire. The current owners, Metcalf Living Management, say that transition has complicated the issuance of the refunds and that it's still not safe to go back inside the building.
We are working both at head office in Toronto and also with our site teams locally to put together a plan that will allow at the very start, at least, the opportunity for tenants to retrieve essentials.
Roth couldn't give a clear timeline on when this might happen. He says residents should contact their insurers if they have tenant insurance and that they shouldn't expect to be going home anytime soon.
We're anticipating a dislocation that could last anywhere from 18 months to beyond 24 months.
A tough message for people like Hawkins, who doesn't have tenant insurance. He lived there for 30 years and just wants to know if anything remains.
Pictures of when I was a child in New York. Pictures of when my daughters were born, when my grandchildren were born.
things money can't replace.
I have 60 years of my life in that apartment, and a lot of it I will never be able to replace.
Andrea Ross, CBC News, Mission.
Well, it was a very blustery day in and around our provincial capital. Strong winds swept through Greater Victoria, knocking out power to several thousand BC Hydro customers. Environment Canada issued a wind warning last night with gusts of up to 90 kilometers an hour expected. It said loose objects could be tossed, tree branches toppled. The winds are expected to ease this evening. As you can see, for some brave souls, it was also a chance for a rather refreshing dip. And as we head into the winter storm season and the power outages that go with it, BC Hydro is urging emergency preparations beyond COVID-19. BC Hydro survey shows more people have supplies to cope with the pandemic than a storm. So while folks may have toilet paper, hand sanitizer, and groceries, they're lacking emergency items such as a first aid kit, bottled water, and a flashlight. More than half of people surveyed in a recent study commissioned do not have an emergency preparedness kit. BC Hydro says the number of storms that hit the province has gone up by 117% since 2014. West Coast Energy, a division of Enbridge, has been slapped with a $40,000 fine in connection with a fiery pipeline explosion in Prince George in 2018. Canada Energy Regulator says the company didn't properly inspect the pipeline. The ruling comes after the Transportation Safety Board found West Coast Energy failed to detect stress cracks. The ensuing blast near a First Nations community sparked a huge fireball that forced more than 100 people from their homes. Damage to the pipeline also choked natural gas supply across the province and into the U.S. for months. Members of Victoria's Ethiopian community took an urgent plea for peace and help to the BC legislature today.
Airstrike, we don't know what's happening to our family. Our people are dying. We want the Ethiopian government to cease fire.
They're asking the Canadian government to help in the conflict between government forces and rebel leaders in the northern part of the country. The United Nations is calling for an investigation into brutal fighting and allegations of war crimes. About 15,000 people have already fled the battle zone. They're crossing into neighboring Sudan, where refugee camps are already running low on food and water. Government troops are trying to quell a rebellion in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Amnesty International says local civilians have been massacred, but it's not clear which side is responsible. There are fears a civil war could draw in other nations and destabilize the entire Horn of Africa. Well, the Asian giant hornet might pack a painful sting, but BC's top hornet expert says the real reason you should be afraid of its reemergence is the impact it can have on our ecosystem. Our Gianpaolo Mendoza takes a look at why the so-called murder hornet is a problem for our food chain.
Asian giant hornets. They've been spotted in BC and they look terrifying. With a painful sting and a wingspan the size of a hummingbird, it's easy to see why most people might find them scary. But the people who have been tracking these predators say what's really frightful is what the hornets can do to our food chain.
My name is Paul van Westendorp. I'm the provincial apiarist of British Columbia, and I work for the Ministry of Agriculture.
Van Westendorp is the BC government's top bee and hornet expert. He's been tracking giant hornets since they were first spotted in the province in 2019. He says the insects, which are native to Southeast Asia, aren't interested in humans.
They only go after honeybees in the late stages of summer and early fall, when their nests, the nests of these hornets, are in need of animal protein. That is the reason why they do pose a risk and are considered to be a serious predator.
It's partly why they've come to be known as murder hornets. The health of BC's honeybee population is important. Many of the province's fruit crops rely on the little insects for pollination.
A world without bees means that the ecosystem will start to collapse, and we would have not that much to eat, and all what we would have left is pretty boring to eat.
That's why agricultural officials in BC and Washington state see these hornets as a serious problem. If you see a giant hornet buzzing around, the important thing officials say is to stay calm and move slowly. If you're unsure of whether it is a giant hornet, well, they're fairly hard to miss.
You can see it quite clearly that it is a very large insect, and as you can see, it has a very broad, shield-shaped face, and that is very characteristic of this particular specimen. If I can compare this with the size of a bald-faced hornet, you can see here the difference between the two of them.
If one does happen to sting you, you should resist the urge to start rubbing the wound and call for help right away.
The worst thing to do is to start rubbing it on the spot where the sting took place, because then you help to spread it around in your tissue, and then everything will swell up.
The ministry has a mobile app for people to send in their photos if they see any hornets. They're also asking people to remember the area where they were seen. If you're brave and skilled enough to trap one in a jar, there is a trick you can do to make it easier to photograph.
It is a cold-blooded creature, so what you do is you just close off the jar or the container, you place that in the fridge for about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, that insect is asleep. It won't do anything because it is cold-blooded and it cannot retain its own heat. So it will slow down and it will sit there, and you can then roll it out on the kitchen cabinet or kitchen counter, and you just take a few close-up photographs.
And even though you can place it in your fridge, just remember that it's not exactly food.
No, they're not edible as such, but there are some cultures in Asia that have certain recipes in preparation of them. I do not know what the health benefits are or one's performance in certain activities. I do not know, but there are some people that have get a culinary delight out of consuming these hornets.
John Paula Mendoza, CBC News, Vancouver.
Quite a buzz on the local mountains. A big day for skiers and snowboarders. Cyprus officially open for the winter season. Parking lot outside the main lodge was soon packed to the brim with a physically distanced lineup quickly forming at the bottom of the lifts. Masks and face coverings are required at the resort at all times now, except while eating or skiing and snowboarding down the hill. No open date for grouse yet. Seymour says it's going to start its season on December 1st. Amy Bell here now in for Johanna Wagstaff tonight. The snow where it belongs, up there on the mountains for the borders.
Yes, it was a lovely sight to see
Beautiful,
this morning.
yeah.
It was a really active weather day right across the province, though. We had these gusty winds. We still have the wind warnings that were up for Vancouver Island, around Victoria. Those winds will ease. We will start to see them sort of tapering off this evening, so quite a dramatic change for what we saw earlier this afternoon when we were into the 70 to 90 kilometer. We will see them ramping up a little bit, though, tomorrow. The other big issue has been this snowstorm that has been crossing the interior. So we have winter conditions for the Coquihalla from Hope to Merritt. And in fact, we'll see this storm, this BC storm, continuing across the interior overnight, bringing about another 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. Tomorrow will be a much calmer day for most areas, and then we'll sort of see things ramping up again in terms of the snow for the interior on Sunday moving forward, and then rain for us. So taking a look at the forecast for tonight, we will see perhaps a few showers and then drying up overnight. And then tomorrow morning, if you get up early enough, you might even see some breaks of blue sky, but then we do head into the rain, unfortunately. Just a high of 8 degrees, dropping to about 6 overnight. Showers on Sunday, I think we'll see them hold off until the afternoon, and then we're back into periods of rain from Monday. And the 5-day forecast is looking pretty wet too. I'll have that in just a few minutes.
All right, Amy, thanks. We'll talk to you in a bit.
You bet.
Well, a 9-year-old Surrey girl is heading to the Canadian Spelling Bee Championships later this month. Harbin Kaur is a grade 4 student at the Khalsa School. She won the title last month for Best Junior Speller in BC. And as our Deborah Goebel found out, it's a feat made all the more impressive considering Harbin moved to Canada from India just 2 years ago.
Oversight.
O-V-E-R. When Harbin Kaur's dad quizzes her on spelling, she aces every word. This 9-year-old is, after all, the best junior speller in BC.
Started when my dad started pushing me to learn English, and then I just
tried to read as many books as I can and sounding the letter out each time.
A grade 4 student at the Khalsa Elementary School in Surrey, her mom and dad have a word for her.
Oh, she's amazing. She's any superlative you could use for it. I mean, she's amazing. She's awesome.
Because it's only been 2 years since their family moved to Canada from India. They all spoke some English, but over the past 2 years, Harbin hasn't just learned the language, she's excelled at it.
What are some secrets you could tell us about if we want to be better spellers?
Just to break words into syllables, sound them out in your head, and that's it.
For 33 years, Spelling Bee Canada has invited kids from all across the country to compete.
We understood from day one that it would help to build their confidence.
But it's the kids for whom English is not their first language that always blow her away.
They're really serious about it because they recognize that what it takes is a discipline. So I recognize that, okay, English is not my first language. So the person who knows English versus myself, I'll have to work twice as hard.
With the spelling bee itself, it's a time management skills that you need throughout life.
Spelling Bee contenders don't just learn how to spell the words, they learn what they mean.
Capable, something you are. How do you spell capable?
CAPABLE.
Harbin beat out 64 other contenders for the best junior speller in BC.
It's good to have lofty aims in the life, but then you have to work hard for it. And this is something which is grooming her towards it.
Next up is the Nationals. Normally all the provincial champs would fly to Toronto and compete on stage. This year, they're being held via Zoom.
How do you feel about that?
Nervous.
How come?
Because there's going to be a lot more people now.
But whether on stage or online, it's a big deal.
WINNER.
Because that's you, right?
Having the confidence to shine at something you work really hard to achieve is always impressive, but it's even more remarkable when you have to jump through some extra hurdles along the way.
That I'm actually being able to do it, and my goals are actually coming true.
Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Surrey.
Good luck to her later this month. Well, a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem, as a lot of people are doing right now. CBC Vancouver also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, COVID-19 cases across the country continue to surge. Coming up, the warning to the provinces from the Prime Minister and the firm message from our health officials. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, there is no shortage of global dance videos on TikTok, but a trio from Toronto is going viral on the social media platform for its dance moves from their family's basement. The CBC caught up with the Basement Gang to see how they're handling their recent success.
Basement Gang, man.
Are you regretting that name?
No.
We kind of,
honestly,
we wanted it to be, we were thinking about like Basement Chronicles before or Basement Boys, but Basement Boys was taken.
Basement Boys was taken.
I was like telling my mom, like, Mom, I got like 100,000 views on this, like likes on this post. Like, guys, this is crazy. Like, I think I was sleeping and I woke up and I seen them texts saying, yo, we had 1 million views on the video, and I just looked it up and I was like, what the heck? Why do you think the videos are so popular?
What you see in the basement is what we do like on a regular basis and what we've been doing for like years now since high school.
Who's responsible for the choreography? There is no choreography.
There's no choreography.
It's show up, here's the song, and try your best.
Basically just, it's like follow the leader. Like someone was hop in the front, do something, and then we'll, okay, let's do that. Sometimes we'll have like our own like little solos.
Chicken Dance has over 18 million views. Why?
We have no clue. It was really just like a random, not expected to be a big video. We literally just accepted him doing, like, for lack of a better word, stupid, you know, like random anime dance. And we ended up doing it ourselves, which a lot of people also liked. So I think it was just the fact that we like accepted him and like really embraced what he was doing instead of like judging him for what he was doing.
So sometimes when I'm working, hey, like, are you on TikTok? Or like, oh my gosh, I recognize you from the videos. And like, hi, nice to meet you.
And what do they say to you?
They just say, oh yeah, just like, I love your videos. Like, they're great, they're amazing. And it's just, It's a bit awkward for me because I never know what to say whenever that happens. So it's like
My mom really loves the video. My mom is like our unofficial manager. Can you do this song, please? Please.
You'll see like thousands of people commenting, "Wow, this is great. I love this." It's really unexpected, and it just feels good.
World's in like a kind of a turbulent place, so like I feel like people get a lot of joy from what we do, even if it's just for a minute or two.
Pulled a couple of muscles just watching that one. Okay, lots to come tonight. COVID news from across our country. So stay with us. We'll have that just ahead. Well, the warnings from Ottawa are becoming more urgent. Prime Minister Trudeau told the premiers that money to fight the pandemic is limited. And as Hannah Thibodeau reports, he joined health authorities today to say the time to act is now.
Every time you hang out here, remember that at some point, we'll all be able to get together here, and here.
The government is now turning to ads, pleading with Canadians to change their behavior.
Modeling predicts 10,000 cases a day across the country by early December. If we do not bend the curve, should be a wake-up call for everyone.
With the holidays inching closer, the PM says there's still a shot at celebrating.
And what we do in the coming days and weeks will determine what we get to do at Christmas.
I think it's very unlikely.
But Canada's chief public health officer sounded less optimistic.
I don't think anyone's advocating parties. This is not going to be a normal Christmas.
Justin Trudeau warned the premiers last night, if they don't take drastic moves now to reduce COVID-19 cases, there may not be enough federal help to go around.
Our resources are not infinite at the federal government, whether it comes to support on contact tracing, extra support on PPE, support through the military or the Red Cross. We are there to support the provinces as they handle this pandemic, but there is a threshold beyond which, when the cases spike too much, we might have to make really difficult choices about where to deploy the limited resources we have.
The country's doctors are also begging politicians to do more.
For all levels of government to come together and to listen and to work together to support our health system.
Trudeau telling the provinces to act now isn't sitting well with all premiers, including Saskatchewan's Scott Moe, who calls it extremely unhelpful. He feels that the PM is framing this as a false choice between protecting Canadians' health and protecting the economy. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
And whatever the federal or provincial governments do, every day matters with the rate at which the pandemic is growing. These are the average new cases per day 2 weeks ago. In Western Canada, here's where they are now, up 50 to 90% in Alberta and the Prairies, doubling here in BC, and in Central Canada, now up 30 to 50%. The rising caseload is leading to more deaths. Over the past month, the average rate of COVID-19 deaths in Canada has tripled to nearly 60 a day. And COVID-19 poses a high risk for First Nations communities, and efforts at protecting them have been somewhat successful. But Cameron McIntosh shows us that in Manitoba, those defenses have been breached with devastating results.
We're closing now. Opaskwayak Cree Nation held the line for months, shutting businesses. Checkpoints set up last spring remain today. Still, COVID got in and spread.
A community member has passed away due to COVID-19.
Cecilia Head passed away this week. Her husband is still in hospital.
His condition was deteriorating. It's very heartbreaking, and it's really surreal that it's come to this.
Niece Rhonda Head blames complacency. The test positivity rate in the community is now at 20%.
I think everyone got too relaxed.
Right now, there's a First Nations-led rapid response team on the ground, testing for and isolating positive cases, trying to contain it.
It's harder to have surge capacity available. You don't have, several emergency rooms, urgent care sites, and testing sites you can go to. You have a single nursing station.
In Manitoba, First Nations make up 9% of the population, but now 18% of COVID cases and a third of cases in ICU.
When they're impacted by illnesses like diabetes, like other underlying issues, it seems to hit our communities a lot harder.
That's an alarming situation.
Dr. Tom Wong is with Indigenous Services. Nationally, the on-reserve infection rate is still half that of the whole Canadian population. The worry? Manitoba is a sign of things to come.
We must do everything we can in order to support Indigenous communities.
In Manitoba, that means $62 million to bolster capacity to meet the second wave.
If it's happening here in my community in northern Manitoba, it's real. It's happening like everywhere.
So far, the federal government has spent $2.4 billion fighting COVID in Indigenous communities. Manitoba is showing a second wave will be more costly. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
So how does your mask measure up? Maybe you've got a few of them. Coming up, we put more than 24 consumer masks to the test.
This is probably about the best spot for watching orcas that you could believe.
Ian and Joan McNeil probably had one of the best jobs in the world. Seeing orcas play and eagles soar by the kitchen window were just a few of the stunning displays that nature put on around the Gulf Islands. Just one of the perks when you're a lightkeeper at East Point Lighthouse on Saturna Island. But the real job is not that easy.
Do you ever have to rescue anybody?
Not rescue, but we certainly changed clothes for them and bailed out their kayaks and given them hot baths and hot food after they've taken a dip.
For almost 20 years, Ian McNeil has kept the light burning at the lighthouse and tracked the weather and marine conditions. Ferry pilots and boaters call him to get up-to-the-minute bulletins. He demonstrated what he did for one last time.
Vancouver, East Point, good morning. It's cloudy, 15, southwest 3, ripple.
The historic lighthouse watches over the deep and treacherous waters on the boundary between Canada and the U.S., the main shipping channel for deep-sea vessels bound to and from Vancouver.
The original light station was built at this site after a huge coal ship went aground near Boiling Reef. For more than a century, other close calls were averted by the men and women who watched and warned from the lighthouse.
The McNeils are leaving their post because East Point is part of the first wave of light stations that are being de-staffed by the federal government. Ian worries that the automated machines controlled from Vancouver won't be able to duplicate human analysis.
I can tell if this thing is working. If it's saying 5 miles an hour and we have a 25-knot wind, well, obviously I know it's not working.
The McNeils are sad to leave after raising 6 children on the picturesque site. Now they pack up and move to the light station at Trial Island off Victoria, knowing that it is part of the next phase scheduled for automation. Manjula Viswasam, CBC News, Saturna Island.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Another record-breaking day in BC's second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. 617 new confirmed cases. 167 patients in hospital. Both of those numbers are the highest seen to date. And 2 more people have died, bringing BC's total to 290.
Safety before anything is key for me and the rest of our team too. We're fully supportive of that.
With so much of COVID-19 in the Lower Mainland focused in areas with a high South Asian population, Diwali will be a lot different this weekend. Celebrations are being held virtually in an effort to keep people safe. Well, the pandemic is presenting major challenges for those who live with disabilities. Katie Nicholson shows us the story of one woman fighting those challenges and urging the rest of us to do the same.
It was already hard enough for Kate Buziak to navigate through the world. Then the pandemic hit.
It felt initially like a big lump fell on top of me. Oh my God, well, I remember this, I remember this. Then I just said, okay, take one step at a time.
Kate's been taking it one step at a time for years. An acute heart attack in 1994 left her with significant brain injuries. It affected her mobility and her memory, and that's made it tough to learn how to keep safe in the time of COVID.
Some people with brain injuries, it's not easy. It's to learn a new mindset, and that's not easy.
Despite that, Kate has managed to do it.
I'd have to tell myself, okay, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. After a while, you know, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart, but it's not easy.
Why is it important to you to follow these rules?
Because I don't want to die. Simple as that.
So people with cognitive challenges have difficulties with memory. So anything that's introduced, it's new to them, takes a lot of repetition.
Heather McKay is a nurse who oversees CODA Health. There are 4 facilities in Toronto where Kate and others with brain injuries live.
Some were able to get it right away, and others it was a lot more reminders. I think that because we had signs up and we had little sessions that we would educate them, and plus they all have a primary worker.
In Kate's case, that's Laverne Blair.
It's a constant reminder. I think it's better now, but at the beginning, it was hard for some of them to comprehend that you need to wear a mask.
Constant reminders and constant worry.
Knowing that the clients would get out into the community and dealing with other people was worrisome, and how would they adapt to what's out there? I mean, when you're inside, you can be a bit more protective, but when you're out there, you're exposed to different elements in the environment.
Inside, the reminders aren't just verbal, they're visual. Common areas are taped out, signs are everywhere, and for Kate, who does well with visual cues, an extra effort to make sure she doesn't forget to wear a mask.
I have the mask on 100% of my apartment door, so I can't forget them. They're everywhere, but you have to put it where you will see it so you won't forget it. Remember that.
I will. Not every new skill has been about staying safe. Some are about staying in touch.
For a while, I felt very disconnected, out of the loop, not know what was going on. That's difficult.
Well, the last meeting ID you got was for another meeting, so now you need a new number. Your cousin Nancy's going to call you, so we're doing the Zoom camera.
Learning Zoom to talk to her cousin Nancy.
There you are.
You are nothing if you are not adaptable. I love the adaptability that my cousin Kate has shown through this is remarkable. Against all odds, learning Zoom, accepting what is, and moving forward she is inherently positive and mentally strong.
Thank you.
So much to have mastered in such a short time, but it's been a success. So far, there have been no cases of COVID at CODA Health, and she's formed some pretty strong opinions on masks. What's it like for you when you see people who are going out and not wearing a mask?
Or say, get a mask on, idiot! Seriously, is that rocket science?
Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Canada's updated guidance on what masks to wear now suggests looking at ones with 3 layers and including a filter-like fabric to help prevent COVID-19 spread. This week, our colleagues at CBC Marketplace put more than 24 consumer masks to the test. Charles Diagro shows us which ones do a better job at protecting you and why.
In a matter of months, masks have become a multi-million-dollar business. But it turns out not all masks are created equal when it comes to blocking out potentially harmful virus-carrying particles.
There were huge differences.
James Scott runs a lab at the University of Toronto. He put more than 24 consumer masks through a rigorous NIOSH test. That same test is used to make sure medical-grade masks are up to snuff. With no standards or standardized testing for consumer masks, Marketplace compared its masks to the gold standard, the N95. Turns out some masks do almost as good a job at filtering out those particles as N95s, including this mask made with cotton and a type of material made from plastic. It's called melt-blown non-woven polypropylene.
Honestly, this did.
I know,
That is remarkable.
Cotton masks were an interesting story too. These 3-layer cotton masks didn't do so well, but these 2-layer ones did much better. When it comes to cotton, consider quality over quantity. The high thread count cotton masks, 600 and 680 thread count, performed very well too.
So the functionality of those fabrics is because the fibers are just endlessly crossing back over top of each other, where there are basically no holes at all, which makes it able to trap particles much more efficiently.
So what didn't do so well? This rayon mask and those gaiters that many athletes wear.
If you look at that fabric, it has very, very large pores in it. Air can simply sail straight through it.
And something Scott says is useless when it comes to stopping the spread of COVID-19, valve masks.
Air only moves through the filter part of the mask when it comes in. It doesn't move through a filter to exhale, it moves through the valve. So there's nothing to intercept those particles that you may be shedding into the environment.
No matter what your mask is made of, remember, any mask is better than no mask at all. Charles Diagro, CBC News, Toronto.
And you can tune in tonight for more on the mask results. Plus, the team takes your fight for flight refunds straight to the airlines. Donald Trump was back in front of the cameras today. Coming up, would the outgoing U.S. president concede defeat to Joe Biden, or would he continue to fight the election results? That's next. And just coming up on 6:43 on this Friday evening, a look at downtown Vancouver tonight. The sun popped out for a bit today, but it was a wet and windy day on the coast. The weekend is here, so is Amy, and her forecast is coming next.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate.
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
It is believed history has been made in North America's 4 major sports leagues. The Miami Marlins hiring Kim Ang as their general manager, the first woman ever to hold that job in MLB, the NFL, NBA, or NHL. Ang has 3 World Series rings, working in the front office for 3 different organizations in 21 years. She spent the past 9 as a senior vice president with the league. Ang started her career as an intern with the Chicago White Sox. She then joined the New York Yankees, becoming the youngest assistant general manager in MLB at the age of 29. All right, the weekend is here. Amy in for Johanna Wagstaff tonight. And yeah, that was kind of messy out there today.
It was a very messy one. Right across the board, we had a lot of active weather systems. So what we saw is very heavy rain and then some afternoon winds. We saw that translate as a very heavy snow for the interior, and that is continuing. So we've got these warnings for the Coquihalla from Hope to Merritt. In fact, all of the mountain passes dealing with snow this evening and overnight. And then we had these incredibly high winds on Vancouver Island around Victoria. We do still have those wind warnings up, in fact, and we will see them easing later on this evening. They are easing a bit now. Earlier today, they were gusting around 70 to 90 kilometers an hour, so there is still a risk of some significant gusts, but we will head into a bit of a calmer stretch this evening before they ramp up again tomorrow. Taking a look at tomorrow, we will see some of that snow dissipating before we wait for this next system to arrive. That's timing out to come in sometimes on Sunday. You can see it brings a lot of rain to the north coast, to us here on the south coast, and then that translates to an awful lot of snow once again for the interior, and then heading up to the northern half of the province. So definitely into these wintry conditions still. We'll just get a little bit of a break from it for tomorrow in many areas. But do take care if you have any travel plans this evening and early tomorrow morning. That snow will certainly still be a factor, and the winds still could be causing some power outages. We certainly will see a few gusts. Taking a look at tomorrow, as I mentioned, we'll still see those winds for the areas around Tofino and Victoria. Starting off with a bit of sunshine in Nanaimo, but then you'll head into the showers. And we'll see that in the same sense for us here in the Metro Vancouver area and out as far as Abbotsford. Starting off dry with a few breaks of blue sky, but then we head into the rain later in the day. Just a few light flurries and whistlers, so we're not seeing that heavy snow that we saw earlier today. Showers on and off throughout the day in Hope. Now, Dease Lake, you're looking gorgeous. A nice mix of sun and cloud, but a low or high of -7. Lots of rain for Prince Rupert. Gorgeous for Prince George, Kamloops, Williams Lake, a chance of some flurries tomorrow. And then again, we'll see that next system hitting you later in the day on Sunday. And that's when you'll have some more snow to deal with. So heading into the afternoon, rain tomorrow with just a high of 8 degrees. Showers on Sunday, I think in the first half of the day, and then it'll dry up for the afternoon. But rain for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think Thursday and Friday too.
Oh boy.
Get ready for it.
The mess continues. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Well, after 10 days without speaking publicly on any issue except for Twitter, the U.S. president finally talked in front of the cameras today. And as Lindsay Duncombe reports, Donald Trump still isn't quite conceding defeat to Joe Biden.
Today, for the first time since it became clear Donald Trump lost the election, he spoke to the media. The topic, Operation Warp Speed, an update on the status of the efforts to develop a coronavirus vaccine.
It will be approved very, very quickly, we hope.
Donald Trump didn't take any questions. The closest he came to acknowledging defeat was this comment about coronavirus lockdowns.
Ideally, we won't go to a lockdown. I will not go. This administration will not be going to a lockdown. Hopefully, the whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be. I guess time will tell. But I can tell you this administration will not go to a lockdown.
The evidence that Donald Trump lost the White House is overwhelming and keeps mounting. Last night, the state of Arizona was called for Joe Biden. a flip celebrated by Cindy McCain, the widow of former Arizona Senator John McCain.
Arizona has always been a very moderate state. But in this case, I think it was more about the person that's in the White House right now than it was so much a referendum on anything else.
Late today, networks called North Carolina for Trump and Georgia for Biden, putting the final tally of electoral votes 306 for Biden, 232 for Trump, the exact same margin Trump won by in 2016, a victory he then called a landslide. And the Department of Homeland Security put out a statement saying the 2020 election was the most secure in history with no evidence of fraud.
People can have faith at the end of the day that their vote counted the way they intended and that the overall result is the actual result.
All this as Donald Trump supporters plan to come here to Washington over the weekend to rally in support of the president's baseless claims. The election may be over, but the tension in this country hasn't gone away. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
Plastic, of course, has a big negative effect on our environment. Coming up, a preview of a new documentary that follows one man as he searches for ways to reduce his own plastic waste.
I've always loved the sign. It's a beautiful piece of artwork, in my opinion, and it's, like I say, it's a very iconic piece to our community. And I was worried, I didn't know what was going to happen to it. Of course, the building was demolished, and I was worried the sign would follow suit. So I contacted our heritage officer in Charlottetown, and he put me in charge with the owner of the sign. She told me many people approached her and offered to pay for it, and she wasn't comfortable with that, and the two of us got to talking, and she thought it would be a wonderful idea to donate it to the college to keep and to save.
It's been there since 1958. A lot of times when my wife and I were dating, and we'd stop in for a hamburger there, and anybody that's been here on the island for any length of time, the Peter Pan has been a part of their lives.
Everybody I talked to said, boy, that's a great sign. It's a beautiful piece. I have all kinds of memories from that.
It was a fairly quick and simple operation because we had researched it beforehand.
Trevor and I went out and looked a few times and looked at how it was constructed, how we can dismantle it, and got all the students on board. They're the brains of the operation. They're making everything work and putting it all together. So got them on board, and it was lowered down without a hitch. It went perfectly. Upon graduation, they're going to be in the field working with heavy machinery. So I think it's a real good opportunity for them to have those field experiences.
It feels really great. It feels like you had a big part in PEI and its heritage, and just saving a big part of its heritage. I know that sign meant a lot to people on this island, including my parents.
We want to preserve and save as much as our island history as possible, and I think that sign is an iconic portion of that. And then we'll put it up on our wall right next to our Rogers Hardware sign that we salvaged a few years ago, and hopefully over the years we'll keep adding to that.
There's a Sobeys beet there, regular size, and this is the one from the Appin Road. Well, I harvested some of my garden yesterday, and the beets are usually last, and the carrots. But anyway, I run into something pretty interesting just the last few beets I was picking. Noticed one pretty large. It probably weighs about 4 pounds. There's probably about 10 meals in that. I plant my garden depending on the spring conditions. This year it was good, about the 1st of May. So it's been growing about a little over 6 months. Once you don't want to miss that and get hit in the wrong spot. It's organic. The only thing I used was some lime, a bit of fertilizer, and compost, all mixed together.
Are you gonna try to, going forward, grow beets this big?
Well, I doubt it, but like I say, it's interesting to see it could develop. If somebody else, it could be the giant pumpkin thing only in beets.
Might start some kind of competition?
Yeah, oh sure.
CBC British Columbia's Food Bank Day is going to look a bit different this year, but it's still in support of an important cause, local food banks across BC. Join us online and on Radio 1, December 4th. A new documentary streaming on CBC explores our over-reliance on plastic and its effect on our environment. As Joel Ballard reports, it follows one man and as he searches for ways to reduce his own plastic waste.
Whoa. Fatherhood. It changed everything for Stuart Gillis. Whoa. Life got a lot busier. Gillis and his wife began to rely on whatever was most convenient.
Convenience was at the top of our list of everything we needed in the world at that particular time.
Suddenly, he was launched into a world of disposable diapers, food, clothing, and other products.
When we had our child, it became very relevant and very present of our impact in the future and what kind of world we were leaving for our next generation.
And so Gillis began a journey to better understand his contribution to plastic pollution, documented in the new film Creatures of Convenience. Gillis had no idea what kind of impact his lifestyle of convenience had on the world until he estimated what a lifetime of daily consumption looked like.
325 pairs of underwear, 425 pairs of socks, 563 toothbrushes, 375 t-shirts.
Between individuals, businesses, and industry, Canada generates the highest amount of plastic waste per capita in the world, according to the Oceania Canada Advocacy Group.
So every year, each Canadian produces just under 1,600 pounds of plastic waste, which is equivalent to 96 trash cans.
Posaka is with the Oceanwise Plastics Lab. She says sometimes people are fooled into thinking we do a really good job here in BC because of the natural beauty.
So it's easy for us, I think, to not feel as connected to this issue and to fully appreciate the amount of litter that we produce every year.
Much of that waste, she says, either ends up in our landfills or our oceans.
We're putting these things into our environment, and that is our life. Like, the environment is our life. We can't exist without it. And if we're choking the environment, and especially our oceans, with plastic, we're ruining our resources.
Among everything he learned along the way, Gillis says one of the main takeaways was that you need to start with doable changes.
And I think what we've realized as people and humans in our family is that we're not perfect, and we're just trying to do a little bit better.
Small changes like switching from single-serve yogurt containers for his daughter or sewing the holes in the bottom of his socks. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
And you can watch Creatures of Convenience tomorrow night on CBC at 8 p.m. or you can stream it now on CBC Gem. And you can always find CBC Vancouver News at 6 online at cbc.ca/BC. Next local news right here at 11 with Dan Burrett after the National. I'm going to leave you now with more of these photos from our Ben Nelms opening day at Cyprus. Have a great weekend.